Ubir ha'inyan ma'alas haTorah, and to explain the concept of the greatness of the Torah. Yuvin me'mayban azal alpayim shana kadma Torah la'olam. We can explain by prefacing the idea that the Torah was there 2,000 years before the world. Perish kadma, what is in Perish bizman? What does it mean that it was before? It doesn't mean in time. Shari azmanu makom shneim yuchudashim, because both time and place are created entities. And before the world was created, you also didn't have the concept of time, so you couldn't say that it was there before in time. But the concept of prefacing before the world is in level of importance. Because the source of and the root of the creation of the worlds comes from the supernal attributes, the emotional attributes, like it says, that 6 days made, 6 days created, it doesn't say in 6 days, it says that 6 days created, that 6 days themselves caused it to be, but these 6 days rather refer to the 6 supernal emotional attributes. They came down into the level of action to create the physical. And this is what it means, that the beginning of the 10 statements that the world was created with is the word Breshis. And the word Breshis, one of the explanations is to divide it into 2 words, that he created 6. Or that 6 created. So Barashis is similar to this idea that you have the pasuk that the world with kindness was created. That also has 2 explanations. The first is that in order to have the creation of the world, this is through the attribute of kindness. That the attribute of kindness comes together with all the other days, that if you have the attribute of kindness, that you're creating everything else. So with the attribute of kindness, you create all. Habez, that's the first explanation. The second explanation is the second explanation is that you first have to build the attribute of kindness. Olam, to have an olam chesed yibana, you must build the attribute of kindness. And similarly, you have this idea of Breshis. The beginning is to create 6. So you could have that the 6 created, or you could say that you must first create the 6. That is the building of the supernal emotional attributes in order to have the source of the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiyah. But the Torah came before the world, because the Torah comes from wisdom, and wisdom is a sphere that comes first before the emotional attributes. Chachma bina das, and only then chesed gvura tiferes, the emotional attributes. Because the concept of intellect is not have to do with the world at all. It's beyond, like we said, olam chesed yibane, so the chachma itself and the intellect is beyond the world. And that when concerning intellect, even if you don't have someone to give to, to give over this intellect, so a person can still sit and contemplate ideas. Which is not the case allegorically with the emotions. Midas chesed when a person doesn't have anybody to give over the kindness and goodness to, so the attribute is completely nullified. It's as if it's not there at all, because the whole point of the attribute of kindness is to do kindness to somebody else or give it over. Like we find by Avraham, that he was sitting by the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day, that the point of his sitting by the entrance was that he was searching after people traveling back and forth, that he was looking for someone to give over the kindness, that was his nature. Because without a receptacle, someone to receive it, is lost the whole act of giving over. Like it says, remember your mercy and your kindness because they're forever. But here we're going to say that it's for the world. That the concept of mercies and kindnesses that has to do with the world, that they have to do with giving over to the world. They are a concept of remember them because they are a concept of giving over to us. Their purpose is to give over and not just to exist on their own. Like we said before concerning that, I said that the world will be created with kindness. Like we said, that we have to build the attribute of kindness in order to give to the world. So similarly, if you remember your attribute of kindness and mercy, that's also a concept of, so to speak, creating them in order to give to the world, or building them. Because without the creation you do not need the attribute of kindness. Because who are you going to give kindness to? And that's why it's brought in the Eitz Chaim from the Arizal in the beginning. That's why it starts. Maram Poprish brings from Rav Chaim Vital the teachings of the Arizal and Eitz Chaim that when it came into the divine will to give good to his creations, that's from the nature of the good. To give good, that's the nature of good, which is the flow of kindness, that it's drawn from the concept of that Hashem desires kindness, that what does it mean, chafetz chesed? That refers to the kindness that's in Hashem's chafetz, that you have ratzon and chafetz. Ratzon is the external concept of kesed, of will, where chafetz is the inner concept of will. It's pnimis, and over there you have a chesed, and so that's within the kesed you have this chesed, this natural desire to give divine flow. But in the concept of intellect, you don't have joined down in the creation of the world. So that's we see that in the beginning, when you have the Aliyas HaRatzon, when you have the beginning of divine will to create, it wasn't with intellect, but it was with chesed, within the hidden chesed that's in the divine will. And even though our sages said that with 10 things the Holy One, blessed be, created the world, and the statement is that it's with wisdom and understanding and knowledge, so there it does seem to imply that the creation is through wisdom. That the world was created with 3 books, with the book and the scribe and the story. That it's explained in the Maamar Sha'avtem that the concept of the scribe with the vav, that's the concept of wisdom, that the scribe is the one that writes the book. Below vav shinikra bina, that the vav is extra, so that's the one, that's what comes down into the book, which is the sefer, without the vav, which is bina. So chachma is the sofer. It's like, so chachma gives to bina, just like the scribe writes the book. Nonetheless, this that's drawn down into the emotions is only the intellect of the emotions. So what's the answer to this is that yes, in the concept of creation, you do have the concept of intellect, even though we said before that you didn't. But what kind of intellect are we talking about? We're talking about the intellect as it's in the emotions, the intellect of the emotions, and not the essential concept of intellect, chachma bina das on its own. But the Torah comes from chachma, comes from essential wisdom, not an intellect as it is to the emotions. Therefore, the Torah was there 2,000 years before the world. So what does it mean, 2,000 years? That's what the verse says, that I will teach you wisdom and I will teach you understanding. So the word alefcha is also the word elef, 1,000, elef of wisdom and elef of understanding, elef of chachma and elef of bina. Those two are before the world, before the emotional attributes, which was the concept of the emotional attributes which we said starts from chesed and so forth, and that's what it means. You have 2,000 years, that the 2,000 is from the language of I will teach you, or alefcha.